Hi, welcome to Pennsylvania Newsmakers, and as always, thanks for watching. Well, what a week in Pennsylvania politics. Three former top Penn State officials have been bound over for trial, and then a Montgomery County Register of Wills is issuing marriage licenses. Plus, civility in politics. Can anything change there? All of that and more follows these words.
This is Pennsylvania Newsmakers, a fast-paced, unrehearsed weekly discussion with and about the leaders who shape your world. And now, here's your host, Terry Madonna.
Welcome back to the program. Well, we have an action-packed show today. Joining me, as often is the case, is Brad Bumsted with the Pittsburgh Tribune-Review. We're going to go into the voter ID case that's pretty much coming to a conclusion. As we tape this, it probably will be concluded. We've got this very interesting dynamic going on in Montgomery County. Brad Bumsted has also written a book on Pennsylvania government. Let me put it that way. How much of the government we want to know about, Brad will tell us. Brad Bumsted, welcome.
Thank you very much, Terry.
All right, let's go to one of the two big stories we want to talk about. Three former Penn State officials, president, athletic director, and a VP for finance, bound over for trial. Big deal. Give us the summary of this.
Well, it was a huge deal, but not because they were bound over for trial. I don't know the statistic, but probably 99% of cases are bound over at a preliminary hearing. The proof is minimal that prosecutors need. But the testimony the first day from Mike McQueary, the former quarterback and former coach at Penn State, overshadowed everything else because he talked about his conversations with Paterno and how former coach Joe Paterno had told him that Old Main screwed up, and he referred to Sandusky as a sick guy. Yep. People are all over the map and trying to interpret what that means.
Yeah, one interpretation is Joe knew more about it than he said. That's one. The other is that he was shocked and wasn't this close, intimate of of Sandusky. You know, they weren't these close friends, and he was trying to cover it up. Go ahead.
Or as my friend Charlie Thompson for Penn Live put it, it may have shown that Paterno had his back in terms of McQueary, that he was helping him and coaching him.
Yeah.
But we don't know. The truth is, the context is missing, but clearly that just overshadowed everything else, and people will be debating that until it goes to trial, if it goes to trial.
Yeah. Oh, you think plea bargain? Well, you've covered, I don't want to ask you how many trials you've covered in your career.
I mean, I'm sure these people would say right now they're innocent and they're going to trial to defend themselves, but inevitably, and when you have a group of people, the weakest link will sometimes make a deal for no jail time and then testify against the other. So we can't rule that out. Now,
just to be sure so for our folks to understand this boils down to this, starts in 2001 with the first victim, and whether or not when Penn State officials learned about this, they proceeded to cover it up. And everything falls from that set of facts. Do I got that right?
It absolutely does, including that there was a police report on the 2001 incident that allegedly was buried and only came to light more recently. There are also the issues that will come up later of the emails that were provided to the Attorney General's office that were minimal, and then much more was provided to Louis Freeh, the former FBI director, who was hired by the university to do a report. So,
and that's pretty controversial because a lot of Penn State alums and Penn State, people in the constituency groups are up in arms about that report, which they think was unfair. Is that correct?
That's correct. But the one thing about McQueary's testimony that I'd like to note is I saw him testify the first time at a previous preliminary hearing before President Graham Spanier was part of it, and I thought he was a real credible witness, despite what everybody said. He was a solid guy. But now, all of a sudden, he comes in with this testimony about Paterno. My question is, why didn't we hear that before? Why are we just hearing it now? I don't understand that.
But before we move on then to the next topic, the big debate now is, again, we're back with Joe Paterno, moved to the center of the controversy. As you know, because you've been covering this, what did Joe know? What did he do about what he knew? And now he's back into the center of this debate, which has been an ongoing aspect of the Sandusky trial as well as, you know, who knew what at the upper echelons of Penn State's administration.
Very well put. He's been at the center of it, and I think he'll remain at the center of it if this goes to trial. It's all about, for some people, how Joe Paterno was treated by the board, and some of that then reflects on Governor Corbett, who was on the board. So
all right,
we'll see.
Let's go to the second big issue. Somewhat surprising to a lot of people, a Montgomery County Register of Wills by the name of Bruce Haynes has started to issue marriage licenses. At the count that I saw last was 34. It doesn't matter totally.
That's the latest that I had, yeah.
Yeah, 34, and that folks have actually, gay couples have actually been married in the state, and that's now controversial. Tell us what the Corbett administration has done to try to deal with what the administration would perceive to be an illegal act performed by this Register of Wills.
Sure. And one piece of background first, D. Bruce Haynes started doing this shortly after the Attorney General, Kathleen Kane, said that the 1996 law banning gay marriage in Pennsylvania was unconstitutional, and she wasn't going to defend it, and she deferred to the governor's office, delegated the case to them. So when you have the chief law enforcement officer of the state saying it's unconstitutional, I guess Mr. Haynes thinks, why not?
And he said that.
Yeah.
He said that he used her argument in his defense to issue these licenses. Go ahead.
Right. So he starts to issue these licenses, and he gets up to 20 to 30 or so before the Corbett administration, through the Department of Health, files suit against Haynes, seeking a mandamus action, which essentially means they want to force the court they want the court to shut him down, to stop doing this.
Right.
And we'll see what happens with that.
Yep. I think that's a first in history. I don't remember, we've got a couple of things going on here with the Attorney General saying, I'm not going to defend state law, which there's a presumption that all state laws, as you know, are constitutional unless a court rules. And then you have Bruce Haynes down in Montgomery County. So all of this is miring the Corbett administration in another big controversy. And then finally, we're still waiting for Kathleen Kane's big investigation report on how then Attorney General Tom Corbett handled the whole Jerry Sandusky prosecution, right?
Right. It's the largest slice of all of this in terms of where she comes in on that.
All right. When we come back, we're going to talk about Brad Bumsted's book, Pennsylvania Insider's View of a State Gone Wrong. No way, no how.
This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is presented by the Pennsylvania Chamber of Business and Industry, the statewide voice of business, and by the Pennsylvania Business Council Education Foundation, educating citizens and business leaders about important public policy issues and civic affairs. This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is brought to you by BetterSaferRoads.com. To voice your support for safer highways and less traffic congestion, visit BetterSaferRoads.com. And by the Pennsylvania Manufacturers Association. Business in Pennsylvania is our business.
Hi, welcome back to the program. Well, Brad Bumsted with the Pittsburgh Tribune-Review has written a book. We're going to put it up on the screen for you. It's called Keystone Corruption, a Pennsylvania Insider's View of a State Gone Wrong. There it is. Man, what great pictures. Now, all of these people have something in common. What is it? What do they have in common?
Felony convictions.
Felony convictions. We have a former Speaker of the House. Go ahead.
Well, we have two former Speakers of the House on there, Bill DeWeese and John Purcell. We have one of the most powerful Senate leaders ever in Vincent Fumo, who will be released from prison next week, we're told, and Senator Jane Orey, who'd been in leadership, and former Democratic Whip Mike Vion. They are among the 8 leaders of Pennsylvania's legislature, 8 ex-leaders who were in prison at the same time. Mm-hmm. It's unprecedented to see anything like that.
It really is. So give us a thumbnail sketch.
Sure.
Is this 100 years? You've gone back 100 years. What's the overarching, if you had to give me 2 or 3 themes, what's the book about?
It's about the cyclical nature of corruption in Pennsylvania. we'll have corruption for 5, 10 years, and it seems terrible, it's horrible. Then things clean up for a while, and then it finds its way back in, and they do things again. But, you know, it begins 100 years ago, or more than 100 years, because of the scandal in building the state capitol, where there were millions of dollars of graft involved in it. And to me, that's significant because corruption is embedded in the building as well as in the culture.
Beautiful building, however, you worked in. I mean, you can't find a more gorgeous building, only to learn that, you know, as you point out, lots of graft and corruption involved in the contracts to do the building, right, to do the construction of it.
Another theme of it is that the Pennsylvania legislature has never passed a law providing for public financing of campaigns. They didn't need to because legislative leaders just used state money anyway for their campaigns. So, you know, it was now de facto public financing of campaigns.
As one thing that was sort of fascinating to me about, you know, in my writing about our state's history is that the later corruption seems more about using it to amass power, to hold on to control of the legislature, for example. Lots of the earlier corruption was about lining the pockets of the individual members of the legislature or Congress. Is that a phony distinction I'm making? Is that a real distinction?
Well, it's a real distinction between the type of crimes, and there's some who would argue that the crimes these people were involved in do not meet the traditional notion of corruption because there was no quid pro quo to put money in their pocket. Fumo is a little different in that allegedly he benefited from some of these things. But
a millionaire, by the way. I mean, he probably didn't need the money.
That's true, but I do think that as I looked at it, some of the early leaders, Matthew Quay, Boise Penrose, who were you know, powerful people at that time, they were doing some of the things in the same way with public contracts and payroll to use that to fuel the Republican machine.
And that's gone now.
Well, yeah, it's gone. But the point is that it was very similar to what these people were doing. It was to fuel the election machine.
All right, before I let you go, how do people buy this?
Well, right now you can buy it pre-order on Amazon.com for delivery in early September. You can go to bradbumsted.com also to get to that link.
There you go. All right, Brad Bumstead, there you got a preview of Keystone Corruption, a Pennsylvania insider's view of a state gone wrong. Coming up, look, how much civility should we have? I mean, is it gone in politics? Well, there's Tim Reeves, who was a former aide to Governor Tom Ridge, is in the House, and he's going to chat with us about a program that is worth noting. We'll be back after these words.
This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is brought to you by Pennsylvania Credit Union Association. Pennsylvania Credit Unions, where people are worth more than money. To find a credit union that is right for you, check out ibelong.org. And by the Energy Association of Pennsylvania, Pennsylvania's energy information source. This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is presented by the Hospital and Health System Association of Pennsylvania, working towards a healthy Pennsylvania.
Hi, welcome back to the program. Well, I don't know about this transition from corruption to civility. We're going to see how that works out. Joining me is Tim Reeves. He's a principal at Allen and Gerritsen. I've known Tim for many, many years. He was a press secretary for Tom Ridge. And before that, what were you doing before that? Tell everybody.
I was a newspaper reporter covering that corruption that Brad wrote about.
Yeah, there you go. Well, Tim, welcome to the program. Look, let's sort of talk out. I want to talk a little bit about the Allegheny College program. Right. But before I do that, let's talk about generically the civility. I mean, my sense is that, things are very tough in politics. You got to wonder why anyone would subject themselves to what's going on today. The language that gets used isn't a language that I think is exactly positive in terms of the way. Now politicians routinely criticize each other. Some of that language is pretty strong. Yeah. What's your sense about that?
Absolutely. So there's probably two key perspectives. So historically, we've been lamenting how uncivil we are for 250 years,
gosh,
right?
Yeah.
right now, I don't think there's any question that the joy of politics is just getting sucked out.
Yeah.
I mean, I think you and I turn to politics because there's a joy in politics.
It's important.
And it's declining, and what's most important, Terry, is young people feel it, and they're checking out, and that's dangerous for democracy.
Yeah, no,
and that's why Allegheny College got involved.
Yeah, I want to talk about that program. You're absolutely right. I mean, and I don't know if it's, I mean, you're the expert on this. You spent a lot of time on the, as a former reporter and dealing with the media. The social media, and particularly the internet, allows you an anonymity that if you and I were sitting across the table talking with each other, but I can have somebody email something or tweet something or Facebook something criticizing Tim Reeves that earlier on, you may talk behind someone's back, but it didn't, it didn't go viral,
You were courteous enough to talk behind their back rather than in public,
right? It wasn't viral.
Right, exactly. No, I think the technology, one, fosters anonymity, as you pointed out. The other point is immediacy. So, I mean, when you have to wait 10 hours to publish a newspaper in the morning, there's a chance to reflect at least for a little bit. Now it's all bam.
That's a good point. It's instantaneous, and I mean, I do Twitter. I've been very careful, but boy, I'm always nervous that I'll tweet something on the spur of the moment that I wish I hadn't.
That's right. And invariably you will at some point if you're on a lot.
That's right. And you can't take it back.
That's right.
All right. Out at Allegheny College, you have a civility and public life program that I think is something that could be emulated by a lot of other institutions. Talk about the program.
Yeah, so real quick, Terry, what Allegheny did. Allegheny, you know, as an educator yourself, you're aware it's one of the nation's oldest liberal arts colleges, one of the great national liberal arts colleges in Pennsylvania. Part of the Allegheny culture has always been civility. I went there, Terry, I was raised in that culture. You debate with passion, you debate with commitment, you debate with rigor, but you do it with civility and respect.
And on issues.
That's right,
on policies,
issues. Thank
not
you.
personalities.
Exactly.
Yeah, go ahead.
So the political science department at Allegheny, your craft as well, was doing a lot of national research to just document what we all felt. That young people, their participation was declining. And when you started to dig down as to why political participation among young people was declining, everything started to focus on civility. You know, it's so interesting, Terry, because young people are volunteering more than we ever did when we were young.
Community service.
They're very service-oriented.
No. Colleges are really into community service and get out and donate, give something back to the, not money necessarily, because they don't have money, a lot of them.
But they're choosing not to do their service through politics. And that has to that should worry all of us for democracy, right? Because, you know, I think in our time, there was still a nobility and a joy to service in politics. Young people aren't feeling that. So Allegheny said, we're a national college, what can we do about that? And what was so interesting, Terry, is that if you start to research the field of civility, there is no shortage of people who are lamenting the decline in civility.
Including the politicians.
Absolutely.
All right, hold on. We're going to run to a break. I want to talk a little bit about some of the folks that you all have had and some of the ways in which you've implemented what you're chatting about. All right, we're going to pay some bills and then we'll return.
This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is presented by Highmark Blue Shield, changing the way health plans work for business with a variety of plan options for employers and more choices for employees. Information is available at highmark.com. Have a greater hand in your company's health. And by the Pennsylvania Healthcare Association, the future of long-term care.
Hey, welcome back with Tim Reeves. He used to be Governor Ridge's press secretary. He's now a principal at Allen and Gerritsen. So how are you implementing it? I mean, it's nice to say, okay, we care about it because we all do, and we go ahead. How are you implementing it?
So the basic idea is if we care about this, let's shine a positive light on good behavior rather than just lamenting the bad behavior, right? Because nobody's doing that. That's what we found. Nobody was doing that. So the Allegheny College Prize for Civility in Public Life.
It's a prize.
It's a prize. Annual award at the National Press Club in Washington, D.C.
Oh, wow. 2
key criteria. First one. Every year we'll have 2 winners, one from the left, one from the right, or one from the left, one from the right.
I got it, that's fine.
A Democrat and a Republican, because if you just pick one side, people won't be able to hear it, right? Exactly, so one from each side. Second one, and this is the one you'll like the most. Rather than picking, you know, there's a lot of people who are just kind of backbenchers in the middle, who are very civil, but they're not impacting anything.
Right.
What we felt like we needed to do was to shine a bright light on the people that were in the arena, pounding away with pride and passion for their point of view, but we're still doing it with civility.
Wow.
That's where we need it. So the criteria is one Democrat, one Republican, and they have to be proud partisans. They're fighting like crazy, but they're committed to doing it with civility. We know they won't be perfect, Terry.
Well,
there's nobody out there,
of
right?
Course not.
You can't be in the arena and be unblemished.
No.
And so the first year, we decided to focus on journalists. So we thought, now who really sets that standard of debating with vigor, right? David Brooks and Mark Shields.
Yeah. Oh, wonderful.
Right? One from the left, one from the right.
Yeah.
Proud conservative, proud liberal.
They're great choices.
They're great choices. That was year one. Year two.
Again, the issue is not whether you agree with them.
Exactly
it's
right.
how they make their arguments. Yeah.
Then we cranked it up for year two. So this was just in February. We felt like we needed to be in Washington and to be in the Senate, which was so much action. So Dianne Feinstein and Lindsey Graham.
Oh, another good choice.
So now, and we got so much grief from the left and the right, we feel like we might have hit it, right?
Yeah, Lindsey Graham was just on a show, by the way, and he was quoted as saying that Congress used to be severely dysfunctional. Now it's only dysfunctional or something. Or I may have messed up part of it.
That's exactly right, and that's a great example. So he's a proud partisan. He's cranking away. He can be hot-headed sometimes, but he really cares about being civil, and it shows.
As you point out, there's nothing wrong with I'll tell you, just relate this, and you'll get this. You know, I post on my blog, and I'll write some things, and then the people will come back, and instead of getting into the arguments, they go into name-calling. Yeah. They start the name calling, and then occasionally I'll have to say, look, you're off if you stop.
Right.
Stick to the issues. If you don't like what the president's doing, point out what you don't like and what you would do differently. Don't start calling names, or it's about the governor or about senators or whoever it is, anyone in politics. And I don't get that. It's the issues that matter. Don't go to the personalities and the name calling. That makes no sense. It doesn't advance your cause anyway, does it?
No, it doesn't. And you know, Tom Ridge, I thought, was a great model of that.
Yeah, I agree with you.
He's an advisor to Allegheny College on the prize. He helps us make the selections every year. So.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think fortunately, regardless of your politics, at least where all our modern governors have been concerned, I thought they have practiced civility. I don't care. You don't have to agree with Tom Corbett, but he's not into name calling. You don't have to agree with Ed Rendell. And Rendell could say some,
he had the sharper elbows.
Yeah, but he didn't.
He still tried to be civil.
Yeah, he really did. And he would cross party lines. Yeah. The same with your boss, as you point out, Ridge, Bob Casey, Dick Thornburg. Most of our modern government leaders have been, I think, civil but boy, you get into some other arenas. So you have about 40 seconds. Where does all this go?
Well, we're hoping that people will participate in our effort. So if anybody's interested in this and you have any ideas for who we should honor in February of 2014, go to Allegheny College's website, allegheny.edu. There's a Civility Award page, and nominations are accepted there. So that's the standard. Somebody who's in the arena but cares about civility.
All right. Thanks for coming on. Stay with us until we clear. All right. We'll see you next week for another edition of Pennsylvania Newsmakers. And as always, stay well.